Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the CDL podcast channel. In this episode today, we've got our predictions for the final week of qualifiers for Major 2 of the CDL season. Got some drama, some roster drama with the subliners to talk about, and a whole bunch more. But before we get into that, Kyle, how you doing today?
Doing pretty good. Yeah, I mean, just kind of a lot of things happening here. We have March Madness and stuff going on, and seems like sports are kind of getting back into swing now too. So it's been like a lot of stuff to watch on the TVs and stuff. But and then obviously throw into that a week full of CDL matches and stuff. It's like information overload almost. And the weather's getting nicer, I'm sure, for a lot of people around the world. Um so you got to do stuff outside. It's like, oh my gosh, it's hard to find time even on the weekends to do stuff. But yeah, I'm ready to dive into this stuff.
Yeah, this is going to be a good episode. I can't believe we're at the point where we're doing predictions for the final week of matches ahead of Major 2. It seems like we were just in the offseason and just in Major 1. Feels like Optic just won their home major, and now all of a sudden we're about to be at Minnesota's major. Um, but Kyle, this is a little bit of a special episode. I didn't tell you before the podcast because I was going to give you a shout out, but this is technically not the 100th episode of the podcast, but this is the 100th video on the channel. So roughly 100th podcast. So kind of a special episode. So thank you guys for all the support. Um, we're looking forward to bringing you a lot more content. Obviously, Kyle technically hasn't been a part of 100 episodes, but we want to give a shout out to Kyle too because the podcast has gotten a lot better with you on it. So Kyle, this is episode 100, special episode.
Oh my gosh. Well, just kind of like I think I gave this as a when I first came on and started with you. But I was just like back in the Modern Warfare days of the CDL. I was like, oh, I was just like, I was newly into competitive and stuff, so I was looking to like consume all the content I could, and I just like uh I just somehow stumbled across your channel on YouTube, and I was like, oh my gosh, and you were replying to people in the comments and stuff. I was like, I can actually have a conversation about the CDL instead of just like listening to people talk about it on the podcast, because obviously there was a lot of other ones back then, like the Codcast Best of Three. That was back
Yeah.
when Hard Points was out too, with
Mhm.
Teep and all those guys. So but it was more like a one-sided conversation. But I was able to talk, and one thing kind of led to another, and here we are. And I want to congratulate you on starting the channel and getting up to 100. I know I've been here for uh, a few of them, now,
Yeah,
going back into the Cold War days. But yeah, so
it's exciting stuff.
congrats.
Yeah, it's exciting stuff. If you guys are new, we'd appreciate if you'd join the people that have joined so far and drop a sub on the channel, drop a like on the video. If you're on the audio platforms, a little newer on there, there definitely aren't 100 podcasts up on there, but probably about 25-ish podcasts ago, we started uploading them to all audio platforms you can listen to podcasts on as well. So if you're on there, drop a follow, drop a review if you're able to. We appreciate all the support we've been seeing on there. Yeah, it's episode 100. I can't believe it, but I'm ready to dive into some news. Um, news has been kind of slow overall for the past few weeks since the season kicked off because obviously there's not as much random roster drama with rosters more set in stone and some rosters really performing well, so they're not even looking to make a change. But we did have some of those. First things first, some quick things to talk about. Top 250 leaderboard coming to ranked tomorrow, it sounds like. Tomorrow, meaning this Tuesday, March 22nd. We're recording this on the 21st. March 22nd, the top 250 leaderboard's coming in. It's going to be the 8th skill rank in Vanguard, obviously ahead of the top one, which is Challengers right now. So the top 250 people in SR are going to be on there, something to grind for, something pretty cool that's coming out, as well as some restrictions being widened. I believe they made it so like instead of having to be within one skill division, if you're above elite, you can be within two skill divisions of the people you're playing with. So a little bit easier to play with your friends. I've had that issue. Me and a couple of my friends are a lot higher than a few of our other friends, and we have to get on like alt accounts to play with them and stuff, and get on burners because like I was around like 2500 elo, and I have a buddy who quite literally plays in 400, so I couldn't play with him. Had to get an extra account and kind of a mess. But thankfully, for all my friends that are in around like 1300, I can now play with them being around 24. So uh, that's pretty cool. But ranked play, they're providing us with some updates, Kyle. Cool to see.
Yeah, everybody's dying to know if you're going to be in the top 250.
I'm gonna
Um,
try. I'm not there right now. I'm only at like 20. I dropped a little bit because I played since they widened skill restrictions a little bit, or my friends ranked up. I play with some of my friends that are down around 1500, and let's just say they couldn't hang with the people around 2400. So I'm down to like 2390, I think, or 2400 somewhere around there. So I'm not too far off. I could be a lot further, but I've got a ways to go.
yeah, so I mean, yeah, definitely good boost to the people still grinding away and in ranked and stuff. So you love to see any attention they're throwing that way is good sign, I guess. And the restrictions widened. I'm not sure how that's going to exactly play. Um, there's kind of that ever going on debate about, should it be the exact classes and everything that the pros are playing with? And it's hard when the pros don't even know exactly what they're playing with. Uh, you're not able to see like
Mhm.
attachments and stuff. Like you have a
Yeah,
million different like stock wraps and or pistol grip wraps and stuff. It's like, oh my gosh, it's the gunsmith has really thrown everything for a loop in recent
for
years.
sure.
When I throw back to the days when you would load in with a pick 10 system or something.
The best.
So yeah, yeah, good stuff for ranked play.
Yeah, it's really good. Only thing I'm hoping for still is a little bit of an SR update because it used to be like you'd gain 50, you lose 50, like really random, like too much SR. But now they've tuned it down too much where like most games, if I lose, I'm losing 15, and most wins, I'm getting 6. So like you have to win like 4 games to even gain like 10 SR, like 4-to-1 win loss ratio, which is a little bit ridiculous to me. Like, uh, my friends and I had like we were down like 248 to like 190 on bow cage, and we came back and won, which doesn't sound like a crazy comeback, but on bow cage to go on a 60-point run is pretty nuts. We stringed like P1 to P3 for a 250 to 249 win. Pretty sure I had like 58, 59 kills with like 140 in the hill, like a very good all around game. I was slaying. I had a lot of time in the hill, and I get 6 SR for the game. And then we lose a round 11 search and destroy, and I lose 15. Like, there's no consistency. They got to update that, but I'm optimistic that they're at least working on stuff because in the past, they'd just throw the rank play out and let it rock and not do anything with it. So hopefully they update that. But we've got some roster drama to talk about. New
Oh
York,
yeah.
they made a roster change. Bring in Paul X, great move. I mean, I don't think anybody can argue, especially with their result. Obviously, they're playing Paris, like don't want to overreact. But hey, they won 2 hard points. That's 2 more than they had going into the match. So Paul X, great pickup. But there is some big time drama with Havoc. Rumor comes out that he was offered by NYSL and turned them down. Uh, then there's like a whole debate of like on the flank, Aches, Zuma, they're calling him a moron for turning it down, an idiot. He should just retire if he doesn't want to join, which when I initially heard it, I was like, that's kind of harsh. I'd like to hear his side of the story. And that's kind of what came out. Havoc posted a tweet longer, basically explaining he turned down the offer from NYSL for a few reasons. One, because he didn't think his personality would mesh well with Krim. And then people were calling him like soft for that, like he doesn't want to get yelled at. And I'm like, I don't know. That seems like a decently smart thing. If you don't think you're going to play well with the player, I can see why you'd be hesitant. He said he more wanted to play with Clay. And if Clay was the one that got chosen to stay with the team, he probably would be on the team right now. Uh, Another thing was he wanted to bring one teammate with him because he heard the NYSL culture was absolutely terrible. They apparently like weren't practicing. There was no VOD review. Like they basically weren't trying, from what he had heard. So he wanted to bring in Brezzy with him as a flex because obviously they were going to keep Hydra in there, and then they were going to keep one of Krim or Clay as the main, and then Hydra as a sub. So he wanted to bring in Brezzy from his challengers team, who was the flex. But apparently Hydra didn't want to play with him, which is odd to me because I know Brezzy is a French player, so maybe there's some bad blood there or something. I'm not sure, but Hydra didn't want to play with him. Obviously, General was a main AR, so they weren't bringing him in. So that left Kismet, who New York didn't want. Uh, so they had picked up Paul X as their flex. And apparently now Havoc has beef with Paul X because Paul accused him of hacking this year because of how much better he had gotten, which I think any of us that know Havoc, we know the guy's not hacking. He's been a good player for a long time. So there was kind of some beef there. They squashed it a little bit on Twitter, but he really went at Aches and Zuma for using their platform to kind of slander his name without letting him come on the show. And Aches didn't really back down, as we know Aches never does. Crazy drama though, Kyle.
Yeah, this is the stuff that that meme of the guy in the yellow blazer standing behind the tree, like he's like
licking
Like,
his
oh
lips. Yeah.
yeah. This is the stuff that, I really like talking about, just like when we get, a little bit of drama and then we get some like substantial news with it too. Because obviously when it's all out drama, it's like, it's more of like a he said, she said kind of deal. Um, but yeah, the whole Havoc thing, really interesting. You would imagine that he, being that he's a 2-year player in the CDL, that, he if he managed his paychecks well, he probably has the ability to, in good conscience turn down a CDL offer. Um, just based on, what he probably made at Florida for those 2 years and whatever. I mean, that's all speculation, but because some of these AMs are like, living, paycheck to paycheck or whatever you would imagine.
Hmm.
And so good. I think it's good on Havoc that he, saw that it might not be the best fit. We've seen a lot of pros come in at this like in these stopgap roles. And it sometimes it doesn't work out for them. It ends up like torching their career. Like who knows if we're ever gonna see Fellow come in again, or if uh if Decimate's ever gonna get another shot in the league.
Hmm.
So these tough situations that pros are put in. So I think it's good on Havoc too, and obviously he's playing on a really good challengers team, and a challengers team that might give some pros a run for the money at this upcoming
For sure.
pro am LAN,
Hopefully they
especially
qualify. I
since
hope it's not one of those weird situations where they just end up flopping at the major and don't qualify.
right. And I mean they have a really good established team too of like a veteran pros. You have General, Kismet, Brezzy, and obviously Havoc. So and they've been going on an absolute rampage this year in challengers. So yeah, also interesting what we got a little insight into the culture of NYSL. Maybe we imagined that this team would be functioning better. But I guess maybe when we saw Revan get replaced by D-Real as the coach, that might have been an indicator for some of the outside observers that maybe stuff wasn't going too hot. Obviously D-Real was a guy that was brought over alongside with Hydra to kind of be like a player development team guy. Um, and also, like you said, really weird that maybe Hydra didn't want to play with Brezzy, but Hydra is probably one of the top 10 players in the game right now. So you
100%.
you kind of got to listen to what he says, and
He's a
obviously this is
franchise
like
player.
yeah, and this is like I was just about to say this is Hydra's team. Even though people might have thought that this is Crim and Clay's team, this is really like if you're gonna choose between Clay and Crim or Hydra, I think you got to go with Hydra at this point,
I mean,
just
yeah,
because you're
Crim and
building
Clay
for the
might only have a
future.
year left.
Yeah, and but really interesting too that they're not apparently not practicing well, and there's no VOD review. Take that with a grain of salt, I would say. But it wouldn't be the first time we've heard of like internal strife within a team. Um, but
Hmm.
yeah, I think it's obviously a lot to unpack with the Havoc Twit longer stuff, but really interesting. But I guess I would also agree with him that it was probably not really fair for Zuma and Aches to really kind of slander him too much. Maybe they should have had him on to talk about
Hmm.
it since he still is an AM. It's not like he's like bound by any of these like non-disclosure stuff or whatever. So yeah, I think they kind of effed up there. If I do, if I can speak freely on that, but yeah, I don't know any other thoughts on that.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough to like say that like at least from my perspective, like Zuma and Ake, since they're more connected to the pros and maybe know more behind the scenes stuff from like NYSL, are maybe more qualified to like actually criticize or like back him. I guess my one thought on it is like if he didn't think he was going to mesh well with the team, with how well I would say almost any challengers player turning down a CDL spot would be really stupid, even if it's Paris. Like if it was an AM who had never been in the league, like if they turn down a spot, it almost sounds like really stupid because like that might be the only shot they get. But it feels like for Havoc, since he's so established and has been a pro since, I mean, like AW days, like he's been a pro forever. he feels like, I don't know if this makes sense, but he just feels a little more established. Like people know who
Mhm.
he is. Like he's if there's a 4-team expansion next year, I mean, probably a 99% chance Havoc gets a spot, especially if his team continues to play as well as they have. This whole roster might just get picked up. And I will say with the Challengers land coming up, as long as they don't bottom out in Minnesota and not place top 4, because I believe that is the qualifier, top 4 at
It
the
is, yeah.
LAN event in Minnesota. So if they don't bottom out, like, and just like not qualify somehow, which it would be a shock if they didn't. Like if they're able to, place top 4 in Minnesota, and then they're able to like somehow out of the 16 teams that'll be at the Pro Am, if they finish like top 8 or something, and beat out some pro teams, I mean, I feel like there's a good chance that a lot of those players get picked up. However, it feels weird for him to turn down this opportunity. Personalities, whatever. Just when you look at peer roster on paper,
Mhm.
this is one of the best offers you could probably ever get for a challengers player coming in that I can think of, besides like maybe Standy joining a roster. At the time, Accuracy was on it, not Major Maniac, but Accuracy, Priesta attached, like very talented players to just hop in on a roster. Cause like most times we see people getting picked up to like teams in shambles like Seattle or Paris in the past. And I guess like maybe Mac for NYSL and Modern Warfare was put into a pretty good situation playing with like Attach, Zuma, Temp, those guys. But like this is one of the best situations an AM could be thrown into, playing with Paul X, one of the very good flexes we've seen this year. You get Krimmer Clay as your main AR, one of the goats, and then Hydra, you could argue, is one of the best subs, if not like the best sub in the game right now. Like on paper, it looks like a very good opportunity compared to like getting thrown into like a Paris like Jimbo did, uh, or like Gravity did. So like I don't know, it just seems like on paper like this is about the best situation you're ever going to get thrown into. Like how often are you going to be picked up to play for a team that's still in the playoff hunt and also has one of the goats on it, as well as a top 10 player, maybe a top 5 player in Hydra, and a very good young player in Paul? Just seems like a very odd opportunity to turn down. And like some people were making the argument that it had to maybe do with salary and what he was getting paid. And then Hecz is like, tournament winnings wise, they've won 5 in a row and they won an Elite Cup. And Havoc has made like 6,500 total in prize winnings before taxes. Uh,
Mhm.
and then I can't imagine his salary. Like he might be getting paid a decent salary, but I don't know if Texas Nation is technically an org or just like a name they go by. And no matter what, like there's no way his salary is as much as he'd be paid to be on NYSL. So on paper, just seems very odd, but I guess if it's behind the scenes personality clashes, he knows a lot more than I do, obviously, about if his personality would mesh with the players. So I'm not going to question that, but just a very odd situation. Although I do think he'll find his way in the league, if not this year, after that challengers versus pro major. Probably if we hit expansion, or maybe even if a team needs a sub post major 2 or major 3.
Mhm. Yeah, I was also gonna say that, it seems like, correct me if I'm wrong, but like last year when that early in the game when West Star was really good, it seemed like they some teams had said that they were talking to West Star guys and they were gonna like, oh no, we're gonna stick together, we're not gonna split up.
And then 3 of the 4
Um,
got picked up into the league.
yeah, exactly. And then fast forward a few weeks and you have like Paul getting picked up onto London, and the rest is history with that. So I think it really does kind of come down to Havoc being an established pro and feeling more comfortable in turning down the offer. And like we said, he probably just saw that it was going to be Clayster that got dropped, and you know, I don't think I can fault him for uh, you know seeing the reality of the situation, and that he was probably going into it with the mindset that you know, Krim and I aren't going to get along, or I'm not going to jive with, if Krim starts yelling at me, I feel like I'm an established pro. I've been playing for, you know, X amount of years. I have, I have some cred to my name. I don't need to be like talked to or what. I don't know. This is just me kind of throwing my own opinions in there, but yeah, as opposed to a brand new AM that hasn't seen it the the pro stage or has never played on a pro team before.
Yeah, for sure. I'm excited to see what happens with their team though. Like if they continue to win and they get like 8 or 9 in a row, they win the LAN or something, it's going to be pretty hard to deny them spots. And like Havoc may have turned this down, but if somebody approaches Brezzy with a flex offer, or if somebody's really upset with their main AR out there in general gets approached, like are these guys going to turn down a roster spot? Probably not. And then the team might break up. Like you said with Westar last year, they were all saying they're going to stick together, and then eventually some of them like like Venom gets an offer from Thieves. It's pretty hard to turn down Nade Shot and Thieves, how big that brand is. Also, the team was pretty good. Like on paper, they had a lot of talented players
Mhm.
to play with. Like at some point, you got to believe one of these players is going to get an offer for a roster that they're not going to be able to turn down. Or guys like Brezzy, General, Kismet started for Paris for a little bit there, but guys like Brezzy in general who haven't been able to start on a CDL team at all, like if one comes calling for them, it's going to be pretty hard not to go there. So we'll see what happens. But you ready to jump into some reactions? Maybe kind of get through some reactions and then get into predictions.
Yeah.
All right. I would say this past week, the second week of qualifiers was an improvement in terms of entertainment value and quality of matches over week one. Week one was kind of a snoozer for a lot of them, but week two is interesting. Going to kind of go team by team, maybe offer little thoughts, some quick questions on them. Starting with Paris, they go 0-2 on the week, reverse swept by London, and lose 3-1 to NYSL, losing 2 hard points to the 0-13 hard point subliners coming into the match. They lose 3-1 to them, and then, like I said, reverse swept by London Royal Ravens. They've been getting reverse swept like crazy so far in this stage. Temp and John continued to fry this weekend. Jimbo super inconsistent. Gravity didn't play all that well. Like when you're looking at Paris's numbers this week, in the series against New York, John with a 1.1, Temp with a 1.13. In the series against London, John with a 1.2, Temp with a 1.12. Like these guys were frying all weekend. John was streaking in the control against New York. Temp was just frying like he has been all year. But they lose twice again. Jimbo with a 0.71 against New York and a 0.91 against London. He's been super inconsistent. Gravity, hovering in the 0.8 range, not where you want to see your main AR at. Just a very odd showing because they once again get up 2-0 in a series and 2-0 against a very good London team. And they just can't close it out. And then they lose to subliners who can't win a match. It seems like we're back to square one with this team where we saw the potential at the end of the major. Seems like Jimbo is just not the answer, in my opinion. I still think Gravity is just fine as a main AR. Like I said last week, I was ready. I know you wanted to be patient with Jimbo. I was ready to get rid of him. I still think it should be Fellow in there for him, but that's not going to happen since they dropped him. They need a sub. If Havoc turns down New York, I can't imagine he's going to take this offer. Maybe they can get Kismet back on their team. Maybe they can get a different sub from Challengers. Who knows? I just don't think Jimbo's it. I feel like this team is like for being the bottom team. They keep getting up 2-0 in series and blowing them, and Temp and John continue to fry. Got to see a change for Jimbo here, in my opinion. That's what I'm sticking with because once again, this team is up 2-0 on London, who's a top 3 team, and they look very good, and they just can't close it out. And Jimbo is just way too inconsistent.
Yeah, I agree. This team is really, they're showing flashes to be sure. With Temp and John. John's kind of having like a resurgence in this game a little bit. Like some people were questioning whether he was gonna get that boot soon as well. But he's been throwing up some good series, good numbers. He seems to be finding out how to play the game better. And Temp just continues to, be the unsung hero of this team. It's hard to say that there's any heroes on this team, but with Temp having, consistently good stats and good matches, despite them losing. Um, yeah, it just really comes down to are they willing to make another move, spend theoretically spend more money to replace Jimbo, if they do decide that that is the route that they want to go. Um, I'm still kind of down on this team just because it just they're making the right moves. Maybe Jimbo was the guy that Temp wanted to be. Honestly, you should be building this team with who Temp wants. Obviously, he's an established pro. He's at times been one of the best players,
You
in a
know,
given title and stuff. But
I'm gonna be honest with you. I don't think John made this decision. I don't think Temp made this decision. I think like Theory and some staff made this decision because
oh
like
yeah,
initially when you hear like Temp in the comms with Jimbo and like he looks like he doesn't have faith, he looks so upset. Like he just didn't seem happy with the change. If it feels like he wanted Fellow in there still. I can't imagine a guy like John, who's a vet and has played with a lot of legends, was just so super excited to pick up like a random AM he didn't know and probably had never talked to, in comparison to a guy that he's known forever like Fellow. Uh, Especially because, like, when you go to battle with Fellow on land, like, you can trust that guy. John, you can trust that guy. Temp, you can trust that guy. Gravity, he's won amateur champs, or not, like, not saying like world championship, but like amateur tournaments he's won on land. Like, you can trust that guy. Like, you're going to battle with three other guys you can trust. I feel like he doesn't fully trust Jimbo, and that's a huge thing. Like, when you don't trust your teammate to do something, uh, not going to play well. No matter, like, even if you say you trust them, but in the back of your mind, it's just not there. You're going to struggle. And I don't know. I feel like the players aren't pulling the strings here, which is another reason why Paris has been like the poverty franchise of the CDL.
Mhm.
Because like, this isn't a sport where like you got a football team or basketball team and you've got a guy whose job it is to dive into all these numbers and make the moves. Like, yes, you should have somebody maybe recommending moves, looking into players that would fit. But at the same time, like, Call of Duty is different than a sport. Like, the player's opinion shouldn't be the only one that's counted, but if it should be a lot more heavily weighed in than you see in sports, because it's just different. Like, when you're playing with the players, who will fold and who won't. And I feel like right now they just don't have faith in each other. And like we said, they keep getting up 2-0 against good teams. They keep forcing series to a mat 5. They just can't close them out because I just don't feel like they have the team right now. So we can move on from Paris, but just disappointed that Fellow's on this team, because I don't think they're like world beater contenders if Fellow's in this team, but I don't think that they're winless 0-4 or whatever they are, 0-3, 0-4 in stage 2. I don't think that's the case. I feel like one of these series that they were up 2-0 and they would have closed out at least. Uh, can move on to the team that beat them and won their first hard point, New York. They improved, no doubt about it. Whatever, it was against Paris, arguably the worst team in the CDL, but hey, it was an improvement. They won 2 hard points en route to a 3-1 win over Paris. Is your faith in them restored?
Uh, I don't think so yet. I'm gonna have to see, significantly more consistency. Um,
Yep.
this it was positive signs, but it seems like every team that's struggling, be it like your Røkkr or your just anybody. I feel like last week, it seems like Paris is your bounce back game.
Røkkr reverse swept them last week too.
Yeah, and geez, I can't. It always seems like a team that's like on the downfall gets a big turnaround game against Paris, but
Optic earlier.
yeah. So yeah, LAG 3-0'd them last week too, like you said. So yeah, I mean, I if this was any other team and they were in a similar situation, and then they got their first hard point wins and stuff, I don't think I would be saying that I'm fully faith restored. But obviously the only way you could go was up with this New York team. It really couldn't get much worse in terms of not winning arguably the most important game mode in variant. uh so yeah, but obviously you can't fault them for winning against a team like Paris either.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I don't know.
That's
That's my
that's one of my biggest pet peeves, is when people are like, "Yeah, but they beat this team." Like, yes, you need to take that into consideration, because, like, yes, if they're beating a team like if New York beats Paris 3-1, or they would have beaten Optic 3-1, yes, we're gonna weigh an Optic win a little more because Optic is a much better team than Paris. But like, at the same time, you can't just completely discount something. Like, I remember I said something about Slasher playing pretty well, and somebody was in my mention saying it was against Paris. And I just didn't even give it the time of day, because I was like, yes, it's against Paris. Obviously, it's not as hard to do it against Paris, but like, seeing somebody bounce back regardless, it's still pro competition. Like, it's not like Paris is some terrible ranked play pickup team that the pros just bully. There's a reason they were up 2-0 against London, because they're a decent team. Like, they're definitely bottom of the league, but like, they could still hang with any of the pro teams on any given day, and make a series competitive. So like, when I said Slasher's improving and somebody's like, it's against Paris, it's like, okay, yeah, sure, whatever. They're not Faze, but like, still, to see a player who's been struggling big time bounce back, it's a big deal. Just like this, I'm
yeah,
definitely
that's
not
my
ready to say uh, my faith is restored in them, but I fully believe that they're on the right track. At least I feel like this was a good stepping stone to potentially get them on the right track. And now I believe that makes them 1-2, because this was their only match in the week. That makes them 1-2. So, hey, I'm not sure. I can look here who they have this week. They get Minnesota and Toronto. So, Minnesota isn't the easiest match, but that's not like one of the top teams. That's a team that's been struggling a lot. Another team that's very bad in hardpoint, so it's a winnable series for them. And then they play Toronto, who Toronto's definitely the better team, but Toronto went 0-2 this week. They look a bit shaky, like they're struggling a little bit. Like if New York ends up winning one of those matches, plenty of 2 and 3 teams made it to winners brackets. Like there's a chance they have a winners bracket, which could really help them gain some momentum on LAN. Definitely not ready to say this team is back, but positive sign. Top KD on their team for the series, Neptune. Interesting because he's been very, very bad this year. Him and Hydra look to be a pretty good sub duo in this series. Krim played pretty well overall. Krim, best thing about them winning was Krim gave us a hilarious interview. Haven't seen him get an interview in a while because they haven't won. And then Paul X had kind of a down series, but he had like 3 minutes in the hill in one of those hard points, and like kind of seemed like that was just like his role. In this series, they were just like, "Hey, just eat the hill time," and like because they hadn't probably practiced with him too much. Like I think he's going to get more into rhythm and like play like himself. And I feel like Paul is actually going to get better, which to me is like the thing I'm optimistic for with this team is I feel like Paul's only going to get more comfortable and get better because we know he can be a superstar caliber player at times. Maybe this role swap is allowing Neptune to be more comfortable. So I will say I feel like Paul and Neptune are going to become more comfortable over time, which could potentially unlock a new level for this team. But I'm excited. I feel like this team isn't going to be a bottom dweller potentially. Don't know that they're going to get anywhere like towards the top 6, but I feel like we're officially back into the point where when New York's on, it's not like turn off the TV time.
Yeah, like you said, don't really expect them to. I mean, it's kind of a match by match basis now, uh, as to what their potential is. Yeah, really positive signs from Neptune as well, with the best KD on the team. Uh, Hydra continues to fry.
Yeah.
Surprised there.
I mean, if this team does happen to turn around and become like a top 6 team, like he should be thrusted into the MVP conversation.
Oh yeah, for sure. And then one other thing that you had kind of spoken about too, but I kind of wanted to just hammer home, like, it's probably time now to just lock this roster in. Uh, and
Yeah.
you know, I mean, unless something really goes sideways or like the internal vibes are just like chalked again, like it's probably time to just ride this out. Um, and for better or for worse, I mean that, like, we keep saying this team on paper is so good. Uh,
It feels like Neptune and Hydra really get along well, and it makes Hydra happy to play with him too, which is something important to look at for the franchise of New York.
mhm. Yeah, so that was just the point that I wanted to make is like, if I was GM, I would say like, okay, we're just gonna ride for this until like major three or something, like at least until major three.
Yeah, I would agree. I'd say you should keep your like your finger on the pulse of challengers looking for potential sub players. Like you're not completely out of the woods, but I would think that like it would be nice to see at least one more week of matches of this team. And if you find a way to go 1-1, potentially 2-0 this week, then it's like okay, we definitely ride this out through the major, maybe further unless we absolutely flop. But I would definitely say it's not like you're completely set with this roster, but I'd like to at least see them go forward through the major and play on land with this team. But keep your finger on the pulse of challengers. Watch for potential sub players. But I think we both agree faith not restored fully, but we're getting a little more optimistic than we were. We believe they could potentially get to the point where they're a team maybe viable for fighting for that 8th spot and moving up the ladder a little bit. Feels like they're out of the complete bottom dweller category potentially. All right. Next team, we go from the bottom dwellers in Paris and NYSL to best team in the game right now, in my opinion, Optic Texas, 2-0 in the week, 3-1 over Seattle, and they really iced up some maps in that series. Showed once again clutch factor that we really haven't been used to seeing from Optic over the past few years. And then they 3-0 Florida. I don't have too much to talk about with this team because they've been so dominant. But I guess my question for you: are they clear best team in the game? Is there a debate at this point who the best team is? Is it Optic?
There's no debate in my mind. That
I agree.
they've kind of replaced Faze in like my talking points, where it's like, for so long it was like, yeah, I don't really have a lot to say about Faze. They're just winning, they're doing all the right things, they're icy, they seem to love playing with each other, yada yada yada. And I think Optic is just kind of like, you know, they've slotted it right in there perfectly. All the same talking points I would have about Faze, I have about Optic now. Um,
Mhm.
I mean, so it might sound like we're not giving them their due time or whatever, but there's just not a lot that we can criticize or really delve into. You
Yeah.
have you have Shotzi saying that they're gonna expand their map pool this
Yeah, that was the
weekend or
interesting thing I
something.
wanted to mention.
So that I'll let you kind of take that away when I finish here, but it's just like they're at that point now where they're just like let's just play our weak maps and see if we can just ego some of these teams or improve on our strats on these maps or whatever. So um really impressed with them. The coaching staff must be doing wonders too because this team looks prepared. When last year or for the last 2 years it looks like they were just kind of like riding into a match and not really having done their homework or like knowing how to counter strat these other teams. Um, but it looks like they've been hitting the VOD hard. They know what they're doing. Um, and they have four all-star players on their team, superstar players. So
Mhm.
they're doing all the right things.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, there's nothing really to hammer negative on this team until we see them struggle. Because I mean, they're on a 10 match win streak since they went 0-2. They haven't lost a match. So like, there's nothing like really negative you can say uh, about the team at this point. And positives, like there are so many positives, but it's hard to just keep hammering them home because everybody that you see everywhere has been talking about it. Because obviously, Optic fans are very vocal, and right now is if you're an Optic fan, it's time to be vocal because they are the clear, in a way, best team in my opinion. But yeah, there's not a lot I want to hammer home. I wanted to make that point. You made the point. It's interesting that their map pool is something they might test out because I believe at 3-0 with a good map count, they're pretty much locked into winners bracket. I would probably say they have that clinched already. And then this week, I know they play Faze, but they also play LAG. So two teams that if you're trying to expand your map pool, it doesn't seem like LAG has a very big map pool, so that might not be a problem. But like Faze, we know you play Faze on any map, even if it says if the record shows they're bad, they're probably able to beat you on it because just like Optic, they're a supremely talented team. Uh, so that's something interesting to know. Maybe Optic will lose a match they typically wouldn't this week if they're trying to expand that map pool. I wanted to mention something. Illy, like I heard him on Attached podcast that he does. I've heard him like all year in like Optic content. This guy's become one of my favorite players. He is like my type of player, an absolute grinder, an S&D player, and just like seems so icy. This guy's quickly become one of my favorite players. Seems like a really cool, humble kid too, as well. So I'm excited to keep watching his story. Feel like he's a perfect player to showcase on Optic because he's going to be in content, and he seems like more of a quiet kid that like even on a team like Envy, he wasn't really featured much in content because they are a very big org empire. But I mean, they're just not a big content team, so you didn't see much from Illy. So excited to keep seeing stuff from him because Scump's got the personality, Shotzi has the personality, Dashy has the personality. But I kind of my favorite player developing into one of my favorite players in the league, Illy. I love the way he plays. He seems like a mastermind on the map, and I'm excited to see where this team goes. See if expanding their map pool benefits them because we know if they hit their goal of making another grand final, you basically play every single map in the game except 1 HP. So they gotta have an extensive map pool. But ready to move on to an 0-2 team this week, Surge.
Mm-hmm.
So they lost, the team we just talked about, Optic 3-1. Had some close maps in there. Definitely was a very tight series. They played Optic really well, actually. And then they lose to LAG. That was a 3-1 as well, I believe. Surge won map one in that series. Kind of a weird question here for you, Kyle, but is the Seattle Surge experiment over? Is it time to blow it up? Sounds weird to
I
say because of how good they started, but what are they like 1-7, 1-8 in their last matches, and their one win was a map 5 against Faze.
Yeah, we kind of had some like fool's gold last weekend with the phase when maybe staved off some internal struggles, but they went up against Optic, who's the best team in the game. I don't think you can fault them for losing that. Um, then they got done in by LAG here too, which is kind of uh maybe a better sign for LAG. Another team that's been struggling with consistency as of late. I don't think their experiment is over. I just think uh, it seems like they have a good org over there now with Novus and I don't know who else they have, but it seems like they have more support now than they have before. They actually have a facility. It looks like. Um, so I just don't know what you would do with this team right now because, like we said, Mac is probably their best player. Sib and Pred are like a duo that's capable of like MVP caliber gameplay at any moment. It's just they've been struggling for consistency, and then accuracy is just that kind of glue veteran guy holding the team together. The team is kind of shaped in his image. Um, so you know, roster moves kind of sound sexy. It's kind of like the hot button thing. It's like, oh, team is struggling, roster move. I just don't know what you would do with this team. Interested to hear what you have to say.
Yeah, it's tough because like on paper, it's like maybe Mac would be the guy you go to based on names, but in my opinion, and sounds like your opinion as well, Mac is the best player in the team so far this year. Maybe early on it would have been like a Sib or a Pred because Sib was cooking, but we've seen Sib struggle for a majority of the matches for a while now. And Pred hasn't been like bad by any means, but he hasn't been as flashy as we saw him early on. Mac has been clear and away their best player, and accuracy is definitely their leader, and he's also been playing pretty well for most of the time. So like on paper, it seems like Mac or accuracy would be the first one to go, but actually, in my opinion, they almost are the two safest players. But it seems so weird because like you've seen the potential from Sib to be an absolute superstar, and you've also seen the potential from Pred to be a super good entry player that's first blood machine and really doing all the dirty work for a team and being a very good submachine gun player. But clearly, something has to change. They have to either change their system up, really focus on expanding their map pool and becoming maybe more of a diverse team that's able to just chow you on any map because it doesn't seem like they're going to be able to specialize in any map. So maybe they just need to get a super wide map pool and be able to ban team's best map against them for each game mode. It's tough. I guess I don't know. It's hard to say like you want to sub out Sib or Pred because like we know that they're ceiling like Sib and Pred. Like usually when you're saying you're benching someone, you're saying maybe they're not a CDL caliber player, but I know for a fact that Sib and Pred are both CDL caliber players. Like these are very good players. Like we were talking after 1 or 2 weeks that like which one of them is going to win Rookie of the Year. It's got to be one of them.
Uh-huh.
Now it's probably fully switched to one of the London guys. As not probably it has fully switched to one of the London guys as the Rookie of the Year. Going to be Gizmo or Nasty unless something crazy happens, but like, it's just so weird, like, I don't know what to do with this team either. We can move on to the next team 'cause it's tough. Sounds like neither of us have a full idea, but I think maybe you explore a switch out for Sib and, Sib or Pred, and if there's a good option, I just don't know if there is because maybe, they're just not playing the way and they're not fitting into the system correctly, but, I'm definitely not sold on that potential move.
No, I'm not sold. I want to see this team iron out their issues because I think getting rid of either Sib or Pred would be too. You would be losing too much
You're
potential.
damaging your future, it feels like more
Yeah,
like past
yeah,
Vanguard.
and I mean, my one thing would be like, do you go out and like look for the best AR and just kind of ride with like losing your system player? Um,
I feel like that would make
if
this
you,
team spiral even more.
I but I mean, that's why I'm more in the camp of just stick it out.
Yeah. It just depends, like, if they stick it out there in losers bracket this next major and they get
Yeah.
first rounded and finish top 12 again, at some point with back-to-back top 12 finishes and not winning a single match on LAN, you'd have to make a change in some way. But
Yeah, I mean, I think that's another debate, for, like, the "What's Wrong with Se" or "What Happened to Seattle" podcast or something, but,
yeah.
uh, like we said, there's no clear answer, so I think we could probably, you know, agree to disagree or move on or something, but it's
Yeah.
kinda depressing, to be honest.
Yeah, because it's not like a team where it's like, man, there are so many issues here that like, what do you do? It's a team that it's like the rosters are right in front of you that should be good. They just haven't been able to put it together since the kickoff and maybe the first couple matches following the kickoff.
Mhm.
We can move on to your team though, Minnesota. They
Yeah.
get beat 3-0 by Boston. They fall to 1 and 2. It looks like all's lost. They're going to be in losers bracket of their major. They go down 2-0 to LA Thieves. It's like, man, Minnesota is going to be in losers bracket at their major. This team needs a change. And then out of nowhere, they reverse sweep Thieves to get to 2 and 2. Now they're in the driver's seat uh, to be in winners bracket at their major because they have NYSL, very winnable match this week. I said last week if they could go 1-1 in their matches, potentially 2-0, they'd have a very good chance to hit that winners bracket mark, which you need to do at your own major. And it's looking like now, even with a loss, as long as it's like a 3-2 or something, they have a decent chance to make it. Uh, but I would say they have a pretty good chance to beat an NYSL team that we've seen struggle pretty much all year except last week. They showed some crazy composure that we know they always have. Attached like tweeted something about like I gotta have the most reverse sweeps in COD history, which is probably true. The iciest player to ever touch the COD sticks in attach. Um, I guess I don't have too much to say about this team. I know that might disappoint you because they're your boys, but like the reason I don't have much to say is because I don't know who they are. That's what I wrote after for a little note for the series. Who are they? They lose 3-0 to Boston, who I was a little down on, but after this week, when we get to them next, talk about being a little higher on Boston. But like that's what I'm going to leave this team with. If you have anything to say about them, we can do it. But my like closing thoughts for Minnesota, who the heck are they? I don't know who they are. One week they're terrible, the next week they look terrible in their reverse sweep. I just don't know what to think of this team.
Yeah, it's hard to think that they're not getting bailed out. Like, uh, obviously composure and when rattling off 3, 4, 5 are, they speak for themselves. It's something that you would expect your established team to be able to pull off every now and then. But I'm in the same boat as you. I just don't like. It doesn't seem like this is a team that's going to make a roster change. Um, they're kind of firmly in that like mid pack team, probably towards the back end of the mid pack
Hmm.
to be frank. They got absolutely cooked by Boston. Um,
Yeah.
I I think that speaks more to like maybe people should be higher on Boston, and then uh, they get. I'll just say they got bailed out against Thieves, and Thieves are looking kind of iffy too, as of
Yeah. What the
late.
heck?
But I'm sure we're gonna get to them in a second. But Major and Standy, turned around. They had great series against Thieves. And people were like halfway through the series, like I think Nameless was like blow it up. I was like, what the hell? Like you're just gonna like nuke this roster. But I think before the season started, we were both kind of in the camp that this is a team that you're going to just have to ride the peaks and valleys of this team because they
Yeah.
stood firm with their
Hmm.
roster. They would really look like frankly idiots right now if they nuked it and then they're like, oh, we're fighting from the back now and we don't know what we're doing. It's clear that they have a system, um, and they're just like a lot of other teams, they're just looking for consistency. uh, so yeah, I don't really have a whole lot else. They're in an identity crisis in my mind as well. As far as like uh they just can't seem to win an opening hard point, which just instantly puts them on the back foot. Um, no matter who you're playing, if you're automatically down like 0-1, it's like you're starting from losers kinda. Um, so I don't have much else to say though.
Yeah. We can move on to the team that they played this week and got smoked by Boston, who beat Minnesota and Toronto. They smoked Minnesota, like we said. They beat Toronto in a 3-2. Zinni gets his revenge.
I told you.
Yeah. Uh, I should have picked it because I've been a little bit more down on Toronto, but I just had faith in them to restore it. Currently, Boston is the number one seed for Major 2, I believe I saw. Obviously, like probably tied with Optic, but I think technically their map count might be better. I thought I saw that they were the number one seed right now for for this upcoming Minnesota Major. Obviously, that could change if Optic goes 2-0 and their map count is better. I believe it goes to. Boston also sitting in sole possession of fourth place in the CDL for points. I wrote a note here down to talk. Are they a top 6 team? But when you actually look at the standings, like with the way Thieves and Ultra look, it seems like no doubt they're at least number 6 because they are definitely at this point. You'd have to put them ahead of Minnesota, Florida, LAG, Surge, Subliners, and Paris, unless you have a crazy take. I think you'd have to probably put them ahead of all those teams. And then
Hmm.
when you look at the top 6 in the standings, obviously pretty hard to argue against Optic, Faze, London not being 1, 2, 3, especially Optic and Faze not being 1 and 2, London being 3. But then with the way Thieves and Ultra are looking, are Boston currently a top 4 team? Are they the fourth best team in the league?
I don't know, I mean,
Yeah.
to use like a skiing metaphor there, but yeah, I'm not. I mean, you kind of gotta give them their respect. They're 3-0. They've beaten Toronto, who a lot of people said are like, a consensus top four team, even though the results really haven't been there yet. Minnesota they beat Seattle, who's struggling, like we said. Th- I mean, admittedly, they do kind of have
Mhm.
an easier grouping of matches this major, so um,
Yeah.
this might be their time to pounce and shore up the winners bracket, a high seed, and maybe make a run at this thing in a few weeks time. This coming week they do play Florida and Ravens. Ravens are, you know, they're a top three team. I think everybody would say but they do look beatable at times. Um,
Mhm.
obviously, Paris took the first two maps off them and then they got reverse swept. So you can get them on a day that you're there. So and this team looks like they're coming together more and more well. I've been really impressed. Like I said last week, I've been really impressed with Nero. Um, Tej and Methods turned up in that Ultra Series.
Mhm.
So I don't know. I think this team is good though. I'll go ahead and give them number 4 right now. Sure, why not?
Yeah,
It
I
might it might
think
be the only time that we can say that. Who knows?
yeah, and it's not like we're saying, like, right now, like, I fully think, like, by the end of the year, they will be better than Ultra and Thieves because 'cause I'm not ready to say that, but, like, right now, they're 100% better than Thieves. I mean, Thieves are 0-3 in a complete slide identity crisis. People are talking about maybe this team should be blown up. Uh, like, Thieves are in a full identity crisis. Have way more faith in Boston right now, and I'm always been a person that's really cautious to, like, throw Ultra, under the bus and, like, lose faith in them. But Ultra look very shaky right now too. They obviously lose 2 game 5s this week, so it's not like they just, like, were absolutely destroyed. They lost 3-2 to Boston, and because Boston beat them, I guess I'm putting Boston 4 right now, but that doesn't mean if we come to the major and I see, like, Toronto, Boston in winners bracket in a matchup, doesn't necessarily mean I would go Boston just because I do think they have their inconsistencies, but right now, they're definitely top 5, and I think you can make a legit argument. They're the fourth team right now behind, Optic Faze in London, so shout out to Boston because I was a doubter for them. I felt like they were a good team that can compete for that like 7-8 range, but right now they are definitely outperforming what my expectations were for them. So hopefully they can keep it up because they're a fun team to watch. They feel like that like team that's always going to be very good in search and destroy, and if they can get their respawn straight, they can beat anybody. And currently that's what they're doing. So shout out to Boston. Uh, Next team, we got London Royal Ravens. They beat Paris in a reverse sweep, lose to FaZe. I kind of want to start flying through these a little bit so we can get into our predictions and have some time for that. But London, reverse sweep Paris, clutch up. Thankfully, they don't lose to them. Lose to FaZe 3-1. Is their ceiling top 3? I guess that's what I was left wondering since, like, they almost lose to Paris, but then they lose again to FaZe. Although the matches against FaZe, like the maps themselves, were pretty darn close. I was trying to pull up the stats here on that series. Like overall, I believe the score lines were pretty close. I remember the final map for Hardpoint. I remember watching that; it was really tight. Yeah, they lost Tuscan 250 to 236. They lost the Gavutu about 250 to 200. Kind of got blown out in the search 6-2. Control was 3-1 on Gavutu, but like overall, they play it tight. But I'm kind of left wondering: is their ceiling right now top 3? Is their ceiling for the whole year going to be behind Optic and Phase? You think, or will they eventually have the potential to get over that hump?
I think right now that's definitely a reasonable stance to have. That they're probably playing third fiddle to to Phase and Optic, obviously. But we've seen this team. We've seen the potential this team has to turn up and really. I mean, they they play really well as a team. I'll just say that. It's clear that they have a lot of chemistry already built up. So it wouldn't surprise me if this team was able to, uh, you know, eke in there and beat an optic or a phase on a day. Especially on land when everything kind of gets thrown out, everything we know. So, but I would probably say that they are the third best team in the game, and I would expect them on. Uh, I would expect FaZe and Optic to win the majority of matches that they play against London, but that's not to disrespect London, though.
Yeah, I agree. When I wrote this question, I was kind of thinking short term, long term. I feel like in the short term, I do kind of think top three is their ceiling. I just can't see them. Like, they've looked good, but it doesn't seem like I feel like Gizmo, having to take that time off and stuff, maybe like stunted their like the speed of their growth because like they weren't able to practice with him for a couple weeks there, and now they're kind of getting back into the swing of things. So maybe they like lost a little bit of momentum there, and understandably, obviously, he had to do what he had to do, but it feels like maybe they lost a bit of momentum with that. Not that they lost a step because they still seem like they are the third best team in the league, which is where they were pre his little break, but seems like right now, I'd say I just can't see them beating Optic or Faze, so I feel like that 3rd place is their ceiling. However, I'm not ready to say that that's their ceiling for the year. I still think at some point, they are bound to take out either Optic or Faze or both and potentially hit a grand final. I don't think it's their ceiling long term, but it feels like short term it may be. All right. Florida fall 3-0 to Optic despite playing their best maps. Only match of the week for them. Can this roster win consistently? I mean, I'll go first because I don't have much to say about it. I just don't see a way this roster can win consistently. I'm almost in team make a trade for Clay for this roster. Uh, I am not a person who like is absolutely adamant that a team needs a leader, an IGL, an established person. I feel like Optic doesn't really have an established one right now. I feel like Illy maybe kind of is, but it seems like that team is very team based in their comms and they like all kind of contribute. I'm not a person that necessarily thinks that it's an absolute necessity, but one team I think needs it is Florida. This team just seems lost on the map sometimes. I feel like if they had Clay potentially, he could organize the troops a lot better and get them on the same page and actually playing smart Call of Duty. Because like every time they play a map, it's like, wow, Florida has the number one KD on this map. Florida has the number one KD in this mode. This player has the number one KD. This player has the number three KD. All their KDs are insane, but they're just an average team. Like that's not a coincidence that all their KDs are insane and they're just average at best. Like they just seem lost overall and unorganized on the map. It's I don't know. I feel like they just need some form of leadership. Uh, I don't think coaching is something that can affect it because it seems like just in game they kind of get lost. Coaches can only do so much because they can't be in game comment for you. So I don't know. I just don't think this roster can win consistently with the way they play because seems like some days they come out and they're just shooting so straight and their guns are so hot that they will win. And then others days, if their guns aren't red hot, they are just going to get outplayed with strategy. So I don't know. I just don't see this being a team that can win consistently, especially since they just played Optic on all their best maps and got 3-0'd.
Yeah, you're so right with the lack of organization really being a hamper for them. I just I kind of laughed that bringing another AR is their solution with Clay, but um yeah, this team like we've said for so long, they're putting up great numbers and it seems like everything is there except for the consistency and the organization on the map. Maybe this team with a little bit of a system like maybe a Clay would bring in could be a fringe top 6 top 5 team because the talent is there from a pure like presence on the map standpoint. It's just getting those presence on the maps like organized in the right way to win. um so yeah, I would say no, they can't win consistently right now because their organization is just so poor.
Yeah, that's what it comes down to. It's definitely not a talent issue. In terms of raw gun skill, just overall raw skill on the map, definitely not the issue there. This team has all of it. They just are so unorganized, and it seems like some of the plays they make. Looking at the mini map while they play, it's just like, man, they are making some bonehead plays that cost their insane gun skill. And there's a reason that they are number one in KD. And I thought I heard while they were playing Optic, they had like only been outslayed on Bocage Hardpoint one time, and they've played it like double digit number of times. So like, but they're like 500 on the map almost. They're like maybe it's they're 6-3 on the map, uh, something like that. They're like 6-3 on Bocage Hardpoint. What is it? Pulling up their record here. They are. Oh wait, no, this isn't Florida. This is LAG. What the heck am I doing? Florida is 6-3 on Bocage. Yeah, and I thought I heard that they had only been outslayed like one time. It's like they're outslaying everyone all the time. Like their overall KDs are pretty nuts, and they just like can't seem to find a way to consistently win matches. So I'd agree. Um, Next team we want to talk about, Ultra lose game 5 to both Breach and Faze. Kleenex had COVID in that second match. He said admittedly he was feeling pretty terrible. Um, I don't have much to talk about with Ultra because like they lose 2 game 5s against 2 good teams. That we just got done saying that Breach is arguably for sure a top 5 team right now, based on recent form, if not number 4. And then Faze obviously top 2 team, perennial contender. Man, have you lost faith in Ultra? My short answer, no. I think they're going to figure it out. It just is odd because we're so used to seeing them from last year just always being that second best team that is just waiting in the weeds to potentially get a crack at Faze and upset them. We saw Ultra in what 2 or 3 grand finals last year. So I feel like their expectations were set super high. And right now, they're just struggling a little bit against some of the top teams. They aren't clutching up like they normally did in the past, but I'm still giving them a pass. I have not lost faith in them. I still feel like they could come out of the major and get a top 3 finish.
Yeah, this team is. I have not lost faith whatsoever. Like you mentioned, 2 game 5 losses to 2 good teams.
Yeah,
So you
it's
can't
gonna
fault
happen
them for
sometimes.
that. Yeah. And it might just be that they're having a tough go of it right now in this particular set of qualifier matches for Major Two. So you'd expect them to have maybe an easier road. Because like it or not, it does come down to who you play in your group or in your
Hmm.
map pool or match pool and stuff. So um yeah, and like you said, this team is always primed to come out and set the world on fire just with their pure teamwork and uh yeah, I mean, I don't think we've seen the best of Cammy this year too. So
Absolutely not.
I'm kind of waiting for him to show up as well. I think Insight has been pretty impressive so far. I mean, he's definitely proven his spot on the team.
Yeah.
And then, Kleenex and Vance, you would expect them to turn it around to some degree too. So yeah, I'm never gonna count Ultra out. I think they've just proven it time and again that you have to always give them their due respect.
Yeah, and like we said, they beat Minnesota week 1, who's an okay team, and then they lose to 2 very good teams. So they're 1-2. They have Paris and NYSL this week. So they went through 2 brutal matches, but they have a very easy chance to bounce back, be 3-2, and be a potential top 4 seed of the major. Like, definitely I haven't lost faith in this team. It's gonna take this is one of those teams that's gonna take a lot for me to fully lose faith in them. Like, I'm always gonna hold out hope until, like, it's almost impossible to for this team, which I don't think we're ever gonna get to that point this year. Uh, LAG went 3-1 over Surge, show some great composure. Are they finally going to be consistent? Is our faith that we had in them paying off? I say yes, they're going to start to become more consistent. They seem to have gotten over the hump of the potential bad vibes with the struggles. Slasher has been playing a lot better now. It's been a few matches now since he had that good match against Paris, and he seems to be playing a lot better. He switched an attachment on his automaton, and all of a sudden the dude is playing way better in this series overall. I believe what was it? I think it was Asim had like an absolutely crazy streak in one of the hard points. But when you look at the side of Gorillas, like overall against Seattle, they kind of got outslayed. Slasher was the only one with a positive KD, but this teamwork seems to finally be rounding out. They were absolutely insanely clutch in the Gavutu control to win an offensive round 5, where Slasher was the hard carry with a 1.43. Seems like he's really stepping up, and I feel like so far this year for Gorillas, he's been kind of the weak link up to this point. So to see him playing well is nice. And I'm not ready to say like LAG is a top 6 locked and loaded team. They're going to be doing well at the major, but I feel like they've maybe potentially turned a corner to start to show a little more consistency and try to put their hat in the ring to be a top 6 team.
Yeah, I totally agree with what you said. I mean, obviously, only playing one match this weekend, hard to really assess if they've truly turned the corner or not. Um, but I would say it was positive, positive from what we've seen. Um, like Slasher kind of rounding into form, you would say. And despite being outslayed by Seattle, with Slasher being the only one with a positive KD, I think that's a good result for them as well. And I would like, I think you and I are both kind of riding this team through hell or high water right now. just because we know what this team probably can do. So uh, it looks like we're kind of being rewarded for our faith, I guess. But I
Yeah.
still need to see consistency on land,
Oh
consistency.
yeah, we've got a long ways to go.
Yeah, exactly.
Like
So
it's just like New York, not fully gaining faith in them, but they seem like they may have turned a corner. We're on the right path. Uh, Got 2 more teams left to talk about in very different spots. Uh, LA Thieves reverse swept by Minnesota. They're 0-3 in stage 2. Is it starting to get to the point where, like, if they don't perform here towards the end of this stage and then at the major, are we potentially talking about going from us picking this team to win Major 1 back in the time to maybe they need to potentially start getting people on their radar for a roster change? Is that a thing that could potentially be looming for a team that, if you look at it on paper, is in a similar spot with Seattle? No clear weak link, all time great players. Maybe Draza isn't in the like all time great player category yet, but a very good player right now currently. Um, are they getting to the point where maybe they should start having their finger on the pulse of challengers and looking at roster changes if they close out this stage 2 as poorly as they have to begin it?
yeah, I mean, this is really worst case scenario so far for Thieves. Not the start to the second major anybody would have wanted for them. Especially kind of having a an early exit in their mind from Major 1. So yeah, I don't think it's ever too early to be at least, seeing the talent that's out there. You don't want to be kind of making a haphazard decision on who you want to bring in if that is the end result here. But this team has shown me too much early on that I'm hesitant to say that that's the move they should go for. Um, but yeah, I mean, it's definitely been a little bit concerning that they've been struggling. So
Yeah.
yeah,
I'm just, it's such a tough situation because it's like Seattle, but even harder because these are more established players than the Seattle players. Like on paper, and like you've seen the ability in hardpoint, they at times have been the best hardpoint team in the game for a little bit there. And we've seen them be very good in control at times. It's just their search has been so shaky. And I don't know if that's a fixable thing with how bad they've looked. Sometimes teams are just not fixable in search and things just don't click. So I'm a little nervous, but like I still feel like we should give this team some time. Like this week they get LAG and Seattle. Like LAG can be a tough match potentially. I feel like Seattle should be a game for them. If they go 2-3, potentially could find a spot towards the bottom of winners bracket. But yeah, it's an interesting situation with Thieves. Never thought going from how strong they looked at 4-1 going into the first major that we'd be talking about them being 0-3 and potentially needing to look at shaking up the roster a little bit, maybe shaking up roles a little bit on the roster because we know they have 2 flex players in Draza and Kenny. So maybe switching up roles there a little bit. Who knows? But the last team we got to talk about before predictions, Atlanta. They beat London 3-1 and Ultra 3-2. They show a lot of composure. But my question for you with this team is their control is still very shaky at times. It's tough to rely on for them right now in that map 3. Can they catch OG right now? Can they catch Optic? Not like in terms of season long, but right now at this next major, are you scared of their ability to potentially catch up to Optic and beat them with them being so inconsistent in control? Because I mean, right now Optic is undisputed best control team in the game. They squared up with like Florida, who everybody was saying was like the second best Tuscan control or one of the best Tuscan control teams in the game. Guess what? Florida had the number 1 KD on that map. Shocker. They squared up, beat them there, and Optic is like maybe lost 1 control map I think this year. I thought they said they've just been unreal. So kind of tough to rely on their control. Is that a concern for you in terms of their ability to beat Optic?
yeah. I mean, anytime that you know, I think all teams have to be measuring themselves against Optic, even though it's a tall order, and
Yeah, Optic's currently 13-1 in control this year.
yeah, yeah. So take that for what it's worth. But yeah, definitely. We've said time and again. I think you've really highlighted it, that control can be your swing mode. Like you can turn a match on its head. You go down 0-2, you rattle off uh that game 3 control, and you're theoretically you're right back in it.
Yeah, oftentimes the team who's best at a map 3 in most CODs is a top 3 team, if not the best team. I mean, FaZe clear cut best control team last year. They were definitely the best team in the game last year. Empire towards the end, definitely the best Dom team for a while there. They win champs. Like a lot of times, whoever your best third game mode team is, they're the team that ends up being the best, if not a top 3 team. And uh, I'm going to say right now, I'm very concerned with FaZe's ability to beat Optic in the short term because of that control. Like I said, 13-1 for Optic in control, 8-7 for Faze. And then in Faze very much struggles on Gavutu at 2-5, and they're 6-2 on Tuscan, where we know Optic is far and away the best Tuscan control team. They're 10-1. They're also 3-0 on Gav. So like they're very versatile on both. I'm scared in the short term for FaZe's ability to beat Optic because of the control woes. Now they could easily still beat them. I could see FaZe beating them in maps 1, 2, and 4. But in terms of like if the series is 1-1, I'm scared for FaZe because I can't see them beating Optic in a control too often.
Yeah, can you see many teams beating Optic in a series anyway? Or
No,
in
and
a
that's the
control?
issue. And that I truly believe control is the reason that Optic is on a 10-game win streak. Because like, and they're a beatable team in search. They're definitely a good search team, and they're definitely a good hardpoint team. I mean,
Mhm.
they're sitting at their overall records in hardpoint being 13-9 and search being 11-8. So like good positive records, but they're beatable. Like it's not
Yeah.
they're 0-3 on siege search. Like they're definitely a beatable team. Uh,
I'm just waiting to see another LAN matchup between these two teams, to be totally
yeah,
honest.
it's just like right now with their control the way it is, it's going to be very tough to beat them. You almost have to beat Optic through hard points and search right now. Like
Yeah, yeah.
they haven't lost control in how long. Uh, but I'm ready to move on to predictions if you are.
Yeah.
All right, you can maybe give us a little quick score update and then we'll dive right in.
Alright, yeah, it was kind of an up and down week. We both had 4, correct map and result predictions, and pair that with, we both had, some negative points as well, and then, sprinkle in a couple other correct prediction results. So our point standings, are as such: I am in the lead with 50 points, and you are trailing by 8 points with 42.
So I think I gained 1 point this week.
Yeah, yeah. I think it was 9 and now it's 8, so,
I should have went for
um,
that Minnesota 3-2 over Thieves like I wanted to.
yeah, so
That would have been a 4 point swing.
I'm gonna pick my gut this week. I'm not gonna let you sway me with that, because I think last week I was even like, "Oh, I wanted to pick Boston in that Boston Minnesota match," and you kind of talked me back into my boys Minnesota.
It's not
So
hard to talk you back into Minnesota, let's be
yeah,
honest.
I know it's my weakness.
All right, you ready to dive in?
Hmm.
Got a interesting slate of matches per usual. Looking at this first day though, looking like there could be 2 hot 3-0s on Friday. Don't know though. Paris has been fighting pretty hard in most series. I believe they got 3-0'd by LAG, and then uh, they lost 3-1 once this week and have been reverse swept twice. So they've had a couple map fives, but Toronto versus Paris in the first series. Kind of an interesting matchup. I have a couple pages up here to kind of look at teams' vetoes. The issue with looking at vetoes for Paris is their map record on every map is just so bad that it's like tough to even see what they're going to veto. Like you normally can look, but they're like 1-5 in 2 different hard points. Their best hard point is a 2-5 record on Berlin. They're 5-17 in hard points. So like tough to imagine what they're potentially going to pick and ban. They obviously are best. Their best map and mode combo is Tuscan Search. Don't think it's going to matter in this series, though. I do think they'll get a map. Don't think they're going to get reverse swept again. So I'm going to go 3-1 Toronto.
Yeah, I was gonna think the same thing. I think Paris has shown a lot of grit, being able to take maps off of teams. Uh, like we saw with London, and even in that New York match too. Um, so it leads me to award them, one map here. But I think it's gonna be a 3-1 to Toronto as well.
Yeah, they've been a pretty solid control team as well. I feel like Paris are going to find a way to take one of those first 3 maps somewhere in there, and then Toronto will close it out into map 4. All right. Thieves, LAG. The battle for LA, one that I believe like LAG didn't lose to Thieves last year in Cold War or something, even though they were like super terrible. But Thieves, LAG, this is an interesting matchup, especially in terms of seeding, because I believe that LAG has 2 wins in this stage, so they could probably lock up a winner's bracket spot again. Could definitely send Thieves to the losers bracket 100% with a win because they'd be at 0-4. Where are you leaning with this one?
This is tough. I want to be respectful of Thieves, and maybe their ability to turn up, but then you
Mhm.
look across the table and it's like, well, LAG are deserving of that as well. So it's really, to me, it seems like it's a toss up right now. I'm not sure if I want to, side with Thieves, even though they haven't really shown me much this stage so far. Um, so I think I'm gonna gamble on LAG here.
Okay.
I think it's gonna be a 3-2 though. It's gonna go game 5.
Okay, I could definitely see that. Kind of like looking at a little bit of the maps here, it seems like Thieves are 3-0 on Berlin, and Berlin hardpoint is also Gorilla's best hardpoint. So I'd expect they don't really play Gav much. They're 1-1. I'd expect probably Gorillas to ban out Gav. Thieves to probably ban out Bow Cage, maybe. I feel like they'll square up on a Berlin because it's Gorilla's best map. I could see them taking a Berlin. Both of them are abysmal at search and destroy. 4-9 for Gorillas and 7-12 for Thieves. They're both pretty average control teams. I feel like the coin flip matters a lot in this series because I think in a Gavutu, Thieves would definitely win that control. But I feel like Gorillas won't want to chow them on that, so they might just play them on a Tuscan if they win the coin flip. You're going Gorillas 3-2. I think I'm gonna go Thieves 3-1. I definitely like wanted to go Gorillas, but I got to make up some points on you, and I feel like it's going to be pretty tough for me to imagine Thieves uh, falling to an 0-4 record in this stage. Like that sounds kind of crazy. I don't believe these teams have matched up at all this year, so this will be the first matchup. I think looking at the match history here, don't think they matched up at all. Uh, so interested to see where it goes, but I'm gonna go Thieves 3-1. Be a little different than you, and I also could see it happening. Gain a little points. Battle of LA. It's also hard to imagine a world where Thieves go to 0-4 and potentially talk roster changes. All right, Atlanta versus Florida. It's gonna be a we're gonna see a 60 bomb in the first map of the series because they're pretty much guaranteed to play Bow Cage. This map won Florida, their best map in Hardpoint, and I believe Faze. Yeah, they're 7-0 on Bow Cage, so they're definitely gonna square up on Bow Cage. Do you see a world where Florida wins a map? Because I don't. I'm going 3-0 Atlanta.
Yeah, I think Atlanta's kind of like re-rounding into form here. After that like weird flukish loss uh to Surge to start. But FaZe really haven't put a foot wrong too much. And Florida are just so disorganized. I think FaZe are gonna have a field day. So I agree. It's probably gonna be a 3-0. Um,
Yeah.
and I don't know. I'll go ahead and gamble on the 3-1 though. Uh,
Okay.
so I'll give Florida a map.
This
But I don't know what they're gonna win, but they might. So I'll take that gamble just for. I feel like you're gonna say 3-0, so I'll go a little bit different and gamble
yeah.
on getting some points here for a 3-1.
I mean, I go 3-0 because like when I look at especially with map counts and stuff like I was talking about, they're obviously going to play a Bow Cage. FaZe is 7-0 on Bow Cage hardpoint, and Florida's 6-3. Florida's 8-8 overall on hardpoint. They have 2 hardpoint wins on maps that aren't Berlin. They're 1-2 on Tuscan, or on aren't Bow Cage, excuse me. They're 1-1 on Berlin, 1-2 in Tuscan, and 0-2 in Gav. Like they can't win a map that's not Bow Cage. I feel like they're going to square up Bow Cage map 1. I'm giving that edge to FaZe. And then any search and destroy, I'm giving the edge to FaZe. I'd imagine they probably play a Berlin map 2, unless FaZe decides to ban it out. And then in control, FaZe is extremely good at Tuscan at 6-2. They struggle a little more on Gavutu at 2-5. But Tuscan is also Florida's map, so I feel like either way, whoever wins picking Tuscan, I feel like it's going to be a Bow Cage, probably Bow Cage Tuscan, or Bow Cage Berlin Tuscan, and I favor FaZe in all those maps, so I'm going FaZe because it feels like another Optic series where Florida ego chow them on all their best maps, but it just so happens that guess what, those are also FaZe's best maps, and they're just a better team than you, Florida. So I go 3-0, but I don't mind a 3-1 because with Florida's hot guns, they could just come out one map and win it, and I wouldn't be shocked if they find a way to take a map. All right, moving into Saturday, Seattle versus Thieves. Who you got here? Two teams that are kind of cold right now, huh? I mean, Thieves are definitely on the downfall. They could easily be 0-4 coming into this match. Seattle is definitely on the downfall. Two teams we're talking about potentially making moves if they finish slow this major. I feel like I want to
Yeah,
lean Thieves here though in a 3-1.
yeah, I'm gonna agree with Thieves. I'll go game 5 though. I'll say a 3-2 Thieves. I just I don't know. I feel like they're kind of struggling. Like obviously they are struggling. I don't feel like they're struggling. They are. Um, but I don't know. It might be a back and forth series. Yeah, obviously both these teams have potential to win this series. Yeah, I don't know. It's
It's a
another
hard
tough
one to
one.
pick because you just don't
It's
have confidence in either team.
exactly. So I'll say game 5 just for difference's sake as well. Um, but I'll give it to Thieves here as well.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like I'm gonna give them 3-1, like I said. And it is just I feel like you're in the same boat. Tough match to predict because you just don't feel good about either team. And typically, like even in a matchup of two bad teams, you maybe have a little bit more of an upside to one team. And both these are just on such a slide right now that it's hard to be like, hey, this is the positives of this team, and this is why I'm rocking with them. Both have just been in excuse me, both have just been in such a bad slide that tough to have faith in either one. Uh Boston, Florida up next. Uh Florida kind of shaky a little bit last week, like we said. They got a tough week this week. Atlanta is obviously a tough match, and Boston's been looking really good. Are Boston going to improve to 4-0 here?
I
What do you
definitely
think?
think it's in the cards. I'm I'm kind of you know Boston's kind of getting into that groove right now where it's like I'm gonna pick them unless it's like it's unless they're severely overmatched. Like if it was like a Boston Optic or something, I'd be like, well, okay, obviously I'm gonna go with Optic. But in
Hmm.
these kind of midfield toss up matches, I'm gonna go ahead and side with Boston here. Um, I'll go ahead and give them a 3-1 Boston.
Okay. I've been going more 3-1s. You've been going more 3-2s. I think we're going to flip it here. I think I'm going to go 3-2 in the side of Boston. Uh, Based on the way that their maps work too. I did a little more deep diving into maps that I've been talking about a little more. A lot of you said you wanted to hear more about our thoughts on vetoes and stuff. So looking at this here, I mean, these are two teams. I mean, Boston has played Bocage 10 times with a 4-6 record. Florida has played it 9 times with a 6-3 record. I think they're going to square up on Bocage map one. Then I think Gorillas are going to ban out Gavutu because they haven't won it yet this year. And we've got Boston at 4-1 on it. Boston's also 5-1, so their map count or their map pool is definitely favored in hardpoint. They're more versatile. I think they're gonna end up playing a Berlin map 4. Uh, I feel like Florida's probably gonna take the cage. Boston's gonna take the Berlin, so they'll be splitting the hard points. I think that they probably go control to the side of Florida because Boston's been a pretty abysmal control team. They're 3-10. So I feel like going to be a 2-1 advantage to the side of Florida here. And then I think Boston are going to close it out with a map 4 hardpoint win and a map 5 search win. I just favor Boston heavily in search, and I think they're going to get it done through probably 2-4-5 in this series and take it 3-2. So far, we're pretty in sync with the teams we're picking. Maybe a little different map counts, but I don't know.
Mhm.
Besides that second one, these are like a couple of these matches. Like I feel like it's hard not to pick like Boston or Faze or Toronto in a lot of these matches because they're pretty heavily favored. I'd say next match, I feel like we're probably going to be in line with who we pick again. We've got LAG versus Optic. LAG could play spoiler for Optic's potential number one seed, especially because we're both picking Boston to be 4-0 at this point. LAG are looking better. Is it good enough to beat Optic? I think you're probably going to agree. In my opinion, it's not. However, I'm not going to go with the 3-0. I'm going to go 3-1 to the side of Optic.
Yeah, I mean, it really to me, it kinda comes down to if Optic, really start expanding their map pool and, maybe they play a couple maps that they're not too hot on or they're not too familiar with, um, but I don't know. I'm gonna keep riding Optic, obviously. It's just a matter of a 3 in my mind, it's either a 3-0 or a 3-1. Um, I'll go ahead and kinda say they come out and stunt on LAG here, 3-0.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I don't think that's a bad pick at all, especially because LAG don't really have like a game mode they hang their hat on at all this year. And Optic obviously is probably going to win the control for sure, no matter what map they play. And I mean, when you look at the side of Optic, they're also a dominant hardpoint team. LAG have definitely been the best in hardpoint of all modes, 8 and 8. They're 4 and 9 in search, 4 and 6 in control. Like they definitely struggle in the 2-3-5. So I could really see this being a 3-0. I feel like that's probably the best pick. The reason I'm going 3-1 is because of that whole map pool expansion idea. I feel like maybe that'll get LAG to play one of their better maps while Optic tries something new. Because like I believe Optic is pretty bad at Berlin hardpoint, unless I'm tripping. Yeah, Optic's 0-4 on Berlin hardpoint. And LAG is 4-3. It's their best map and mode combination by far. So I feel like they'll probably play each other in a Berlin hardpoint while Optic tries to expand their map pool since they're 0-4 on it. And I feel like LAG will maybe take that to make it a 3-1. Tough to pick that though, because Optic's been so dominant and Gorillas have been so shaky. All right. Moving on to the final match of Saturday, your boys, New York Subliners versus Minnesota Røkkr. You got faith in New York to continue the turnaround and win 2 matches in a row, or you think Minnesota is going to close it out and clinch a winner's bracket spot?
I think Minnesota's got to win this, or else I'm gonna really be worried. uh,
Yeah,
maybe
2
that's
pretty
that's
abysmal
my
hardpoint teams.
yeah, that's my ultimatum. You heard it here first. But yeah, I'll go ahead and say Minnesota win this. They're if Minnesota wins the opening hardpoint, I might just like drop dead of like shock. Um, but then again, if New York like shows that they can win a hardpoint, I might die of shock as well. So I don't know. Yeah, but I'm gonna go ahead and give it to Minnesota 3-1.
Okay, I'm in agreement here. I thought maybe you'd go NYSL because we did see some improvement, and Minnesota's definitely been shaky as well. So like to pick NYSL over them wouldn't be a shock at all. I'm gonna go 3-2 though. I think this is gonna be a lot closer than people think. I think the hard points could easily get split because both have been so bad. Uh, to me, this series fully comes down to control. I have faith in Minnesota to win the searches. I actually think I favor New York in the hard points. As weird as that sounds, I liked what I saw from them in hardpoint in the 2 that they won in their last series. Feel like I've got a little bit of faith in them in that department. So I lean Minnesota here in a map 5, but I actually, for some reason, for the first time this year, don't feel too confident picking against New York. I really do think they turned a new leaf, and I think this is a very possible win for them because I think this is a big momentum game. If they're able to win this, they get to 2-2, and they're in the driver's seat. They control their own destiny to get into winners bracket. So I don't feel great picking it, but I am going to go Minnesota 3-2 because I think it'll be a tight series. Alrighty, we got going into Sunday, final day of matches before the tournament. London versus Boston. Interesting matchup here because a few weeks ago you probably would have been picking London for sure, but now Boston's climbing up the ranks. They're maybe 1 spot behind London Royal Ravens on the power rankings right now. Do you have enough faith in Boston, seen enough to pick them to win this one, and for you to pick them to go 5-0 in qualifiers?
Uh, I think this is where they run into their one uh their one loss of the stage here. It's gonna be the Boston Tea Party, but not in the favor of the Revolutionaries. I think London is gonna win this match. However, I think it's gonna go 3-2. I think Boston has proven they're a team that can extend series. Um, case in point being that Toronto series. And I just think Boston has too much fight in them to go down too quickly. So, but I do think London is gonna pull out the win in this one. So I'll go London 3-2.
Yeah, I'm in agreement with you. I wanted to go 3-2 one way. I do think it'll be London. Although this is another one that I feel a little shaky on because London haven't necessarily been like super impressive to me in these qualifiers. They obviously look super good with Paul X, but they were a little bit shaky at times this week. So I'm not fully confident, especially because Boston has looked very, very good. They've definitely been the hotter team so far in these qualifiers, but I got to keep my faith in my Royal Ravens boys and pick them to win this one in a 3-2 fashion. I do think this series has potential to be the best series of the weekend, though. I'll go ahead and say that. I feel like I could see a lot of blowouts throughout the first, like, I could see every series day one potentially finding itself to be a blowout. I could see uh, 2 of the series on the next day being blowouts, and I could see a couple series on this Sunday being a blowout. So I feel like this Royal Ravens Boston series has potential to be one of the better ones we see. But I'm gonna agree with you and go London 3-2, just because not ready to put my faith in Boston over them yet. But I believe that makes me pick. I think I picked Boston now to go like 1-4 overall in the matches. Like I think that match versus Florida maybe is the first time I picked them in these qualifiers. So I'm gonna look like an idiot when they go 2-0 this week, and I picked them only like once or twice. But hey, they keep proving me wrong, and I'm not gonna complain because it's fun to watch. All right, Kyle, we've got what probably will end up being the banger of the weekend, unless Optic does some weird gamesmanship and tries to extend their map pool and not show us anything. We've got Optic versus Faze. Are you ready to finally pick against Optic and go Faze? Will they be trying to extend their map pool too much?
I think their ego is gonna get in the way of this map pool malarkey. Um, Especially since it's Phase, obviously. They're not gonna want to like show their ass and like get embarrassed on you know some on their weak maps or whatever. But maybe they do lock up the 1 seed or something with that presumed win over LAG earlier on Saturday. So uh maybe they do just like totally just throw it to the wind and say, hey, it's not on land, so we don't really care, we already have it locked up, whatever, yada yada yada. um you can get into a bunch of different storylines, but I think Optic is going to win either way. um I'll go ahead and I'm going to say they're going to get it done in a 3-1 over Phase. That's how much faith. I mean, it's like the Optic, like you've said, you got to just keep riding with Optic until they show us otherwise.
Yeah, for sure. I do think that this series could be pretty dependent upon earlier results in the week. Like let's say FaZe does beat Florida, which I fully expect them to do. They'd be at 3-1.
Yep.
Uh, and let's say Boston does beat Florida, uh, and potentially beats Ravens. They could be at 4-0, or they also I would expect them to be at least at 3-1. I don't expect them to lose both matches this week. So I feel like FaZe are going to be at 3-1. Boston are going to be at 3-1, if not 4-0. Expect Optic to beat LAG and be at 4-0 at this point too. Like this could potentially be a situation where they lock up the 1 seed with a win. So I do think that it all depends. If they had the 1 seed locked up at this point, like if FaZe somehow loses to Florida, if it's all locked up, I feel like they could be trying to extend their map pool, and I could see them losing. But if it's not locked up with the like higher seed advantage, it's one of the biggest advantages we've ever seen because you quite literally get to pick the map you play in map 3 every series. Like you get to pick your control, and for Optic, who is the best control team and like is basically untouchable on Tuscan control, that's a huge advantage. They're going to get to play like their best map and mode is Tuscan control, and they're going to get to play it every series if they lock up the 1 seed. So I feel like if they have that to play for, there's no chance they lose because that is a massive advantage for them to have going into the major. I'm picking Optic in a game 5 here. You went 4. I'm going to go 5. This is, again, a toss-up series. Every time FaZe and Optic play this year, I feel like it's going to be a toss-up series because, Optic is the best team, but FaZe at any point could easily take that title. We know that the talent level of these teams is crazy. No matter what team is viewed as 1 and what team is viewed as 2 at any given time, we know they can upset each other. I am going to stick with Optic, though. I said I'm probably going to pick them until I watch them lose. So I go Optic 3-2 here because I think that 1 seed is going to be absolutely crucial for them. Although it's crucial for Phase 2 because Phase has been horrible at Gavutu control. They're 2-5, and they're actually very good on Tuscan. So the 1 seed might even be more important for Phase to get. But I go Optic 3-2 here. All right, last match of predictions for the qualifiers for Stage 2. Last predictions, Kyle, for us. In terms of qualifying matches until I believe like something crazy like until like May. The CDL schedule, I believe it says it's like May is when the next qualifying matches start. Yeah, May 13th is the start of the qualifiers for the third major because we've got like the All-Star weekend in between the midseason break and like the Challengers LAN. So the next set of matches we have to predict is until May 13th in terms of qualifiers. So last map of the first half of qualifiers of the season. Subliners Toronto. You didn't put your faith in Subliners versus Minnesota. Are you ready to put your faith in them against the other Northern team?
I don't think so. And that's just more on respect towards Ultra. Um, I think this New York rebuild uh, is going to take some time to really get rolling, to gather some momentum. Uh, so I will give New York. I'm going to have this extended to a game five because why not? Um, but I'll give Toronto the ice in game five to pull it out. Um, I don't really have any good rhyme or reason. This is a totally revamped New York team now. You can probably start to just throw out all of their map counts. To be totally honest, like their map counts are going to suck for everything.
Hmm.
Um, and we just got to see how well this team starts to play. Obviously, the positive result uh, with winning over Legion and stuff, but now we kind of got to hit the reset button, and they're going to be fighting an uphill battle all season. So nothing against them, but I'm going to go ahead and give Toronto the 3-2.
Yeah, yeah. I got to pick up some points on you. I think I want to pick New York. I think I'm going to pick New York 3-1 over
Oh,
Toronto. Doing a little bit of digging on the map picks for the series. Like you said, you can't really rely on New York's map counts at all because it's a new team and they're just abysmal on everything in terms of what their record is, which I almost think plays into their hand for a little bit with this new team before teams are able to really figure out what they're good at. I feel like that's an advantage for them. And when you look at the Ultras map counts, it's actually fairly obvious to see what they prefer in every mode. Uh, Honestly, in Hardpoint, their best record is 3-3 on Berlin because we also know that they had that streak of like 8 Hardpoint losses in a row, like where they were horrible. Their best map is Berlin. We just saw New York 100-point club Paris on Berlin. And I also see here that Toronto's Bocage is their most played map at 3-5. We saw New York also dominate on Bocage against Paris in their last series. Feel like we're going to be able to see a Berlin and a Bocage, which are two maps that are so far from what we've seen from New York, some decent maps for them since they won them both and looked very good. Then when you go into the control, it's pretty clear that um, with 9 times played, Toronto prefers Tuscan at 5-4. I feel like if they end up playing Tuscan, I like Neptune, Hydra, and Paul all on subs. I feel like they have a good chance to square up with them. And then overall in Search, Ultra's 11-8, and I feel like Paul X is going to transfer into Search. So I just feel like they have no info on this New York team. This New York team is hungry for a win, could potentially put them in the winner's bracket. So I'm just going to go on a flyer and say that Paul X is really going to improve this team's search and destroy, and they're going to get some favorable hard points for them since there's almost no info on them, if that makes sense. Kind of a wild pick. Toronto are definitely the favorite in the series, but I don't know. I want to go New York 3-1 because I feel like the unpredictability of what their map pool is going to make them better in the short run. And then once teams maybe figure out what to ban against them, it might make them weaker. But I'm going to go New York 3-1 and be a little different here. What do you think about that? Is that wild?
it is wild, but I mean, I like the pick just for the getting some points on the board.
And I don't think it's
From
like outrageous because Toronto has been shaky.
yeah. I mean, it really comes down to if Toronto turn it around this weekend or not. Uh, yeah,
And
like
also
you said,
Toronto played
it's
the
a
first match on Friday, so they haven't played in a while. New York plays the last match on
uh,
Saturday, kind of coming in. A little momentum. You never know. Definitely as a wild pick. I'm sure Toronto probably ends up pulling with the W, but I want to go a little bold because I feel like right now is the time to pick New York when they're still unpredictable with this roster and teams don't have a lot of info on them.
yeah, or they just like continue honeymooning pretty hard, and
Yeah. And like we know, like a team with Neptune, Hydra, Paul, Krim, like the talent is there. If they put it
mhm.
together with some teamwork, like they have the talent to play with some of these other teams that are more towards the middle, like Toronto is right now.
Yeah, I agree. I agree.
All right, you got anything else before we jump into maybe a down bad sports moment and wrap things up?
I don't really have much else.
I don't. I mean, you got a down bad sports moment. I don't really have one. I mean, my Colts just got their quarterback today, Matt Ryan, perfect bridge quarterback to use for 2 years while we look for one in the draft these next 2 years. I'm pretty happy with the way the sports world is going right now. I mean, I guess the Badgers did lose in the most abysmal college basketball game I've watched. I don't watch much college basketball, but it was like my eyes were bleeding watching that game. Chucky Hepburn got injured, and they literally did what the Badgers do anytime besides the national championship appearance team, and that's just go stagnant on offense for an entire half. I mean, Iowa State, the team that they lost to, looked abysmal as well. Like they couldn't score either, but the Badgers' offense was just even more horrendous. So they ended up losing the game by 5 points. I'm also in one of those pools where you get like the two numbers. And the Badgers got fouled at the end of the game. Dude went 1 for 2 from the line. He just needed to miss both quick, and he's like a 20, or excuse me, like a 30, 40% free throw shooter, like terrible free throw shooter, and the dude hit one of them. All he had to do was miss two, and I would have won some money at least off the game. But yeah, I guess I'm not a huge college basketball fan, but the Badgers are my team because I'm from Wisconsin. So watching them put up an abysmal performance as a 3 seed and getting upset was horrible, especially because they got a 3 seed, so obviously they played a 14 seed in the first round, which was a win for them. And then they got to play an 11 seed in the second round because of an upset. And then number 2 Auburn, who's in their bracket in their region, got upset as well. So they would have played a 10 seed. So they could have gone from a 14 to an 11 to a 10 seed with almost like a free ticket to the Elite Eight. And of course, in typical fashion, they choked it away.
Yeah, I was about to speaking of the Colts getting Matt Ryan, I was about to send you a gift today of like or a meme of like the two muscular arms like, clasped together like, in agreement and one was going to be labeled Clayster and the other Matt Ryan and I was going to say washed old dudes. Um but yeah, I mean I guess it's good for you guys to get just like you have a serviceable
Favorites to win the
quarterback.
AFC South.
Yeah, I mean, it's not the worst pickup you could have had, but like you said, it's just a bridge stopgap. Um, my down bad is my Marquette Golden Eagles losing by like 30 god dang points to UNC in the opening round. It was an 8-9 matchup, so your theoretical, 50-50 split game was really just a blowout. It was a total farcical performance by Marquette. They didn't even look like they should have been in the tournament with the effort and performance they put out there on the court. Really just nonstop pain. It feels like every sports team I ever get somewhat invested in just breaks my heart. Haven't had especially with like Marquette, like they haven't been good in a long time. Like my senior year of high school, when I was making my decision on where to go, like Marquette had just been in the Elite Eight with like Jay Crowder and those guys, and I was like, oh my gosh, like this team, it could be a really fun, basketball school. Obviously, they don't have a football team or anything, but I was like, oh, this could be interesting. And then they go on 4 straight years of just like terrible performances while I'm there. And then, it's just been kind of ups and downs since then, and they really haven't had much tournament success. And it's tough to sit around with, my friends who are, Badgers, Wolverines, and Spartan fan, all Big Ten schools and stuff. And they're like, oh, yeah, the tournament, we're expecting to go to the Elite Eight or the Final Four. I was like, F you, we, my team is lucky to even be there any given year, and then they're just going to flop out in the first round. So, yeah, a little bit down bad, but I think I did preempt it last week, and I said that my brackets were just going to be totally abysmal. And, yeah, I haven't even looked at them since day one. I Venmoed my money out, and I'm just like, yeah, I'm gonna lose it this year. So whatever. It's a fun thing to at least be excited about for a couple hours until your bracket goes to crap. So yeah, down bad.
Yeah, I actually know one of my friends whose dad is a St. Peter's alum, and he picked them uh, to go to the Sweet 16 and then lose. So I was like, that was the most creative bracket I've seen on the year. One of my buddies picked St. Peter's to go to the Sweet 16 kind of as a joke because his dad went there. And then all of a sudden they're actually in the Sweet 16 as a 15 seed, like one of the few 15 seeds to ever make it that far. So that's kind of wild. But yeah, I got nothing else if you're ready to wrap this one up.
Yeah, I'm ready.
All right. That's going to do it for this one. Final predictions for qualifying matches until May. Kind of wild to think about, but
Yeah, that is wild.
that's where we stand. After this major, we're gonna have like a little bit of a mid-season break for the CDL, and I believe like somewhere in between there, I don't know if the dates are officially announced, is when that Challengers versus Pro LAN comes in. Maybe the tournament I'm most excited for. So content isn't gonna stop by any means. This was the 100th episode, so shout out to you guys who have been supporting out there. I believe on YouTube, like 75% of the people that seem to watch the videos aren't subscribed. What my analytics tell me, kind of wild. So if you guys watch this one, if you've been watching for a while and you enjoy, check if you're subscribed. If you're not, we'd appreciate if you hit that button. Drop a like, comment down below on this one. Thank Kyle for joining the podcast. Now we're 100 deep. Hopefully we got at least 100 more, if not many, many more. But thank you guys so much for watching this one. That's going to do it. We will see you next week with big predictions episode. We're going to be doing a giant predictions episode for the major. Might be out slightly earlier than normal because I am headed to the major to attend in Minnesota. So I won't have as much time because I'm headed there on Wednesday. So going to record that one a little early, potentially get it out for you guys early. And yeah, that's going to do it for this one. We will see you guys in the next one. Thanks for watching.